Hello everyone, welcome back to Kirklees Guitar School. In today's guitar lesson, I'm going to teach you how to play Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. This is a really good piece for anybody that's looking to mix sort of rhythm guitar work with sort of little lead fills in a sort of Jimi Hendrix style. This song's full of it. I'd urge you to go to the first link in the description and download the free tab that accompanies this lesson. That'll take you to my website where you can get a tab for this completely for free, along with 100 other song-specific tabs that go with lessons. There's a lot in this one that I think if you print it out and get it under your nose while we're working through it together, it's going to definitely be, it's definitely going to help you get this under your fingers. If you like the way that I teach, I'd urge you to check out the second link in the description, which is for the Kirklees Guitar School Academy. The Kirklees Guitar School Academy is my membership platform where every lesson I deliver here on YouTube, Academy members get access to additional resources such as technical focus lessons and full guided playthroughs so you can see exactly what I'm doing up front. I've also got a whole host of courses and other extra material that's not available anywhere else, and you can check that out with a 14-day free trial from the second link in the description. I'd urge you to go check that out. Right, so what are we up against today with this one? Let me put some chords on here for you. Now, there's a lot in this one, and there's a lot of bar chords in it. Now, this you'll see at the top of the PDF if you've downloaded it. There's a few more chords that I've chopped off this that come later on in the song, which we'll get to in due course. Really, what I'd like you to focus on immediately is this D chord here and this F sharp chord here. We're just going to focus on these two fellas here. Now, this D chord is what we call a C-shape bar chord. So we're going to pick this chord throughout the whole bar, and then we'll talk about this in a second. But this essentially, if you imagine a C chord, but you've got a capo on your second fret, so you move everything up 2 frets, and imagine you've got a capo there. Now, you are going to have to shuffle around, you're going to have to be your own capo, and you're going to have to... Now, if you were to play this... you could play it with a D chord down here, but it doesn't sound right. You need to play it what's what we call an inversion. Still a D chord, but we're playing it ever so slightly different, and we're using what we call a C-shape bar chord. If you've studied the cage system, this should make sense to you. And what we're going to do is I'm going to fret this chord, and I'm going to pick the A and the B strings. Now, I'm undecided as to whether Frusciante uses a pick or he uses his fingers. How I like to play this, I like to play it with my fingers initially for the picking part, and then when we get into the... I like to use a pick for that. But just for now, we are definitely just going to pick this with his fingers. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. You do what works for you, okay? So I'm going to pinch these two. Now, this is really important. Occasionally, you'll see that he's pinching 2 notes at the same time. This is a big part of the sound, okay? Don't skip these notes on the B string. You see how it comes up here as well. So I'm going to pinch that, and then with my thumb, I'm going to pick the D string, and then with my index finger, I'm going to pick the G. And then I come back on myself to get this 4th fret here. I'm then going to use middle finger and then index finger on my picking hand to get these 2 fellas. Now, for sort of the first 3 quarters of this bar, I'm holding this shape before I move on to the next. Bit, which I'm going to break out of position. I'm going to let go over here, and I'm going to play this in semi-quavers, all with the thumb. I'm playing the 4th fret, 2nd fret, open on the A, and then I've got the 4th fret on the low E, and that's C sharp, B, A, G sharp, and I'm sort of doing this walk down from D, which conveniently takes us to F sharp. We're just moving down the major scale. Now it's going to feel like you're doing a lot of extra work with your thumb for those. If you are more confident with a pick and you want a hybrid pick it, what I find is the pick it's a lot harder to be accurate with it. That's why I like to use my fingers. But really, do whatever works for you. I'm not precious. As long as it sounds good, let's just carry on with that. So then I'm going to fret just a bog standard F sharp bar chord, E shaped bar chord starting on the 2nd fret. I'm going to pinch the low E with the thumb, and then with my middle finger I'm going to pinch the B strings to get those two fellas. And you see how I'm sort of following a similar thing. I'm picking through the chord, and then I do this other little walk down, which is very similar, but the string below. You see that? Now, you would be forgiven for thinking that this last note was a 4th fret. It's not, it's the 2nd fret. It finishes on a B. And I think he's using that as an anchor to get back to this D chord that comes back. So this is the whole thing. It's really sort of like, you've got to be really intentional. You can see how I'm sort of fluffing a couple of notes here or there, and it happens to us all. So don't get too bent out of shape about it. Now this, I'll put this back on screen in a second. That is the bedrock that pretty much that the whole intro is based upon. Okay, this comes up in the beginning for I think it's something like 16 bars. We're going to go through it all with a couple of variations, but the crux of it is that D major shape to that F sharp shape. So I want you to pause the video, spend quite a lot of time getting this under your fingers for me. It's a little bit of a finger twister, that's for sure. I haven't decided whether this is a level 5 song in the Academy or a level 6, but it's not fast per se. You've just got to be ridiculously accurate, otherwise it just doesn't sound like it. So assuming you've got that under your fingers, we're going to go on to the next bit of the intro, which is built upon a similar theme, but there's a couple of variations, and this continues for the entire song. So we're going to go back to this D shape. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep the bar for this D chord. After I've plucked the string, I'm going to hammer on to this from the 2nd fret, which is included in my bar on the B string, to the 3rd fret, and it gives you this lovely kind of. Can you hear how I'm deferring it? I'm picking those two, and then I hammer on here, and then you continue the same. You pick through the chord. And then you do this lovely kind of Hendrix, this lovely like Hendrix picking part. So what I'm doing is, while maintaining this D shape, when I get here, I'm going to remove my pinky, I'm going to pick the B string, I'm then gonna hammer onto that pick the B string and then hammer onto the 5th fret and pull off it again. And then I pick that G string above it. Got this low. It's one of those where I've been playing this song for years. When I've got to play it slowly, it just takes me a minute to get, whereas when I play it up to tempo, and then you've got this lovely kind of like little Hendrixy slide where you take the top end of the chord, you pick it, slide it up 2 frets, and then pick it again. Pause the video and get that for me. Moving on, we've got F sharp, where you basically, there's nothing new here, you're just picking through the... But notice there's no pinch this time. And you do that little walk through. Pressing on, otherwise we'll be here all day. You can see that the back end of this is pretty much just a carbon copy of what we've done so far. Now, the only thing that I will stress to you that's different here is, if you have a look at the bottom right hand side of this slide, you will see that there's like a little triplet at the end. Basically what you're going to do is, I'm going to play that very last bar, I'm looking at the bottom right, you're going to pick through the F sharp, hear how it's just pick 3, 4, 4. It's just an ever so slight variation because we're making our way to the into verse 1. So just pause the video. Where are we? There we are. Just pause the video and just try and tidy that end bit up. And what I'd encourage you to do at this point, this is the trickiest part of the song. If you can get this under your fingers, the rest of it's an absolute doddle in comparison, okay? But it's getting the accuracy of your guitar. Now I'm playing this Jaguar today because it's got a shorter scale length and that stretches a little bit easier. If I was using a Strat or my Jazzmaster, it would be that stretch would be a little bit more tricky. Do 10 or 20 minutes of this at a time. Don't spend 2 hours doing this because you'll hurt your wrist doing it, especially if you're not used to those stretches. Softly, little bit at a time. Okay? So, take that whole intro, practice that for me. Now, we're going into verse 1 now, and we're sort of, you'll be pleased to know, there's not as much in these bits, is there? There's not as much to go off here. So, we're going to play an E chord, and I'm going to pick a plectrum up at this point. If I was playing with a gig, if I was playing this at a gig, I would have a plectrum in the corner of my mouth, and I've done this at gigs. And then when I'm ready, I'd use my plectrum for that. So let's go here. Right, so we're going to play an E bar chord shape. So if you need to reference the top of the sheet, so I'm playing this E bar chord here. You see how I'm not playing the note on the high E string just because I've got sausages for fingers. I prefer to bar those chords twice. If you want to cram the 3 in there and play it like that, that's completely cool. So I'm just gonna hit an E, and then I'm gonna move up to a B bar chord shape. Now every verse is kind of based around this, but as we get further into the lesson, you'll discover that it does. There's a lot of variations, which I'm intending on covering all of them with you today. We're then gonna pick a double stop on the A and the D strings on the 9th fret, and I'm going to do this Jimi Hendrix sort of style where I slide it up and then I catch the 9th fret on the D and the G, and I'm aiming for this kind of like C sharp minor type vibe. Sometimes we'll play it up here, sometimes we'll play it down here. Doesn't matter each way. And then I'm gonna play a G sharp, and then I'm gonna pick an A. Now I can't listen to the record. I can't decide whether he's sort of hybrid picking, where I'm sort of clawing the top strings and picking the bass note with the plectrum, or whether he's doing a bit of that, or you can strum the entire chords. Depends how granular you want to go with this, but can you see how I'm picking the strings with my fingers and I'm picking the bass note with my plectrum. That's what that sounds like. Pause the video and get that under your fingers. I always think of this first one's almost like a bit of an appetizer for what's to come, and it sort of sets the expectation of this is the bedrock of it that everything else is built upon. Continuing into the verse, you're going to play E, B. We're going to go to C sharp minor down here in the A minor, sort of that A minor shape around the 4th fret, and then we're going to pick this A chord here. So you can see how we're just cycling through these. You know, sometimes it'll go directly to the A, sometimes it'll do the walk up to the G sharp minor. What it tends to do is it tends to alternate between them. So it'll either, if it's done just the A chord, the next time round it'll put the G sharp in. If it's just done that, it'll go back to the A chord. Let me play everything that's on screen for you. And I don't know if you noticed on the tabs, I've left out pretty much every high E string and every B string. When I listen to this on the recording, I don't think he's playing power chords, but I get the impression he's sort of playing the lower end of the strings. I can hear lots of the sort of lower notes. I can't hear any of those. I can't hear any of those higher notes, particularly in that E chord, or even there. I can't hear those notes. I think he's predominantly focusing on the bass strings of the guitar. So we've done that as part of his verse. That's the second part of it. And then we go into the final bits, which is just E, B, C sharp minor, and A. Nothing new here. And then the lyric here is together we cry. And then you get this lovely E major 7 chord. Now E major 7, let me put the diagram on screen for you. E major 7, I'm looking, it's slap bang in the middle on the bottom row. Now it says it's E triangle. This is like shorthand jazz harmony for a major 7th chord. Is that? Can you see how it's like a little backwards triangle barred at the 7th fret? It's an absolutely lovely chord. And this actually is the first time I came across a major 7 chord when I heard this song, and I was like, what is that? That sounds magic. This comes back at the end of every verse, and it'll either take you to the it'll either take you to that bit, or it'll take you back to the sort of that bit, which we're going to have a look at now. So again, that's the second section. By memory, I'm pretty sure this will take you to the bottom of the first page now. As we enter into verse 2, it starts to get a little bit more liberal with all the sort of ghost notes, okay? So we're still retaining this E, B, C sharp minor, alternate G sharps, and then A. But we're starting to get all these lovely like little Jimi Hendrix-style inflections, okay? So I'm going to play 2 E chords with a down and an up, like that. I'm then going to move up to B. Now it looks like there's a lot here, but if you break it down, it actually makes a lot of sense. You're going to go. The lick is. Now, rather than just tabbing out a couple of the notes, like I've seen a couple of other people tab it out this way, I know that he's holding the full chord and then sort of putting these little inflections on top of the chord. Don't treat it as its own thing. I want you to keep this B chord fretted while you're doing this. Now, Hendrix would play these bar chord shapes and put his thumb over the top of the neck. I'm guessing Frusciante is doing the same, but most of you will know this shape already rather than... And I actually think that's a little bit more difficult in this instance to play it like that. So what we're going to do is you're going to play a B chord, you're going to play it down, up, down, up. But these are semi-quavers of these. These are really, really quick. A quick flurry of notes. Down, up, down, up. And while you're retaining that shape, you're going to pull off and hammer on between the 9th fret and this 8th that you've already pressing as part of the chord. You're going to move the pinky up to the B string and then pick the G again, while retaining this chord. Because of the scruffy nature of this, you are more than welcome to, if you pick the occasional string that's not strictly on the tabs, because you're holding all the strings with notes that will work with the record, it won't sound that bad. And I think part of this sound is it's very accurate, but it's also got a bit of a loose kind of thing about it. We're then going to do this slide again around the C sharp minor, but we're going to do it twice. You slide in first, catch the 9th fret of the G, and then give me another one. And then you're going to go. So I'm just going to hit a really quick G sharp, sort of focusing on the D, the G and the B strings. And then there's a little rest. Move up to the A chord. Now you can either hold this shape like we did with the B, or you can focus on the root, 3rd, 5th octave. and sort of do like a little baby bar chord there. I'm happy either way, but you're going to strum the chord and then use your pinky to hammer on and pull off between the 7th fret, the 5th and the 7th fret of the high E string. And then you're going to just catch that B string on your way back up. So the whole thing. You see, there's so many like little inflections, and we could all learn something, myself included, from practicing this a little bit more, I think. So then, moving on, it's a lot of the same. This is identical to what we've done previously, including the C sharp minor. This time, because we're not going to the G sharp, you'll find the A always does something a little bit different. So you'll go... so can you see how this is the same? You'll just play the top half of this A chord like we did in verse 1, but then you're going to pick deliberately in quavers the top end of that chord on your way back. Right then, where are we? Yeah, okay, so then we get into the next part of the verse. Again, nothing new here. We've done this is identical to what we've previously done, including this bit here. And then to round the second verse off, can you see how we've got the sort of, just as we've covered, and as I said before, it goes to that E major 7 shape, and we're getting ready now for the chorus. So now as we move on to the chorus, I'd like to sort of think, if you've got to this point, there's 3 very clear kind of sections in this song. We've done 2 of the 3 sections, and then there's a sort of wafty bit at the end, but that's, by comparison, there's not as much in that. I want you to take each section and make sure you've fully got it under your fingers before you move on to the next one, and you'll have much more success with this. Now the chorus, arguably, I think is one of the easier sections in the song. And this is what we're up against, this sort of... So hopefully you can hear the song in this. We're going to start with an F sharp minor chord, an A minor shape bar in the 9th fret. And we're going to start on what we call the and of 1. This little 7 here is what we call a rest. So when the first beat of the bar hits, I want you to just pause for half a beat and smack it just after the rest of the band do. And then can you see how there's another one here? And what that means is I want you to strike that chord and then relieve the pressure with this finger here to sort of, you're killing the note dead. Don't let that note ring out like you do the others. It's this short, sharp kind of like stab. It's part of the funk thing kind of creeping through, okay? So you've got that F sharp minor chord. You're going to move down 2 frets. So you're going to play this E major chord like we've been playing in the verses. And I'm just doing 3 downstrokes there. Quaver, crotchet, crotchet. So I don't know if you can hear this very last one here. I've purposely kind of left it a little bit further away from the others because it's the last bastion of the bar before you move to the next one. There's a little bit of a delay before you hit the 3rd and final stroke of that E chord. We're then going to move up to G sharp minor, so it's the same as the F sharp minor, but we're starting on fret 11 instead of fret 9. And we're going to go down, up, down, up. Da, 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 da. Now, I've heard some people say that it's a slightly different inversion. I think this is the most accessible, and that's why I've chose to do this one rather than a bit of a funky, different inversion. I think it sounds better, providing that you catch it right. Followed by another rest, and then we go back to F sharp minor. And that's the same kind of deal as this E here. You see how there's 2 relatively close together and then one just before the bar finishes? This is the same over here, okay? So the whole thing. Now, sometimes you might see me go into a minor 7 chord. That's just habit of playing funk and soul stuff for years and years and years. It should be the full chord. Now, as you move into the rest of the chorus, I've just lumped it all on one slide, the rest of it. It's just the same thing, round and round and round and round. And it's more about the lyrics in this section of the song, and we're just carrying on. Hopefully you can see we're just what I just showed you in the previous slide. It's just repeated another 3 times. Now, coming out of every chorus, you will get another I know I blasted through that fairly quickly, but this is the same as the head of verse 2. Okay, you will again download the PDF and go get this. It's all the same here as what we've done prior. Verse 3 does change ever so slightly, which we're going to talk about in a second. But the verse part is relatively interchangeable between the... it can be used as an instrumental section or it can be used as a verse. And it's just about kind of tuning into what embellishments John's putting on it as to which part of the song that you're at. To be honest, you could get your fingers under the first 8 bars of the second verse and play that for the whole song and nobody would know the difference, but I like to sort of try and go that extra mile if I can. So we've now tackled the first chorus into the instrumental and we're going into verse 3 now, which looks like this. Very much of a muchness. This is repeated twice. It's 8 bars long. Excuse me, is the verse. But you'll see, particularly in this first bar, there's just something a little bit different around this B chord, and then you'll see in bar 3 on the bottom left, it's pretty much the same as well. There's a couple of slightly different kind of these little Jimi Hendrix kind of embellishments. So rather than starting with the E bar chord, moving into verse 3, he slides into the 11 and sort of does the C sharp thing. Don't know why, but that's what he does. You see how this is the same as what we've previously done. It's this that's different. It's just the same. Sorry, we're walking down that one. If you have a look at the bottom line now, we go back to the bar chord for the E. He sort of does like a little bit of a hammer-on between the 7th and the 9th fret. It's a really nice little thing into... And he adds an extra note in that walk down of the A. But what I'm seeing in this, Jimi Hendrix used to do this sort of stuff all the time. I'm thinking like Little Wing. Or Wind Cries Mary is another good example of it. It's this sort of... it's this kind of like hammer-ons and pull-offs and cascading through scales, but then using this major shape. It's catching different notes around that. And that's what John's doing here. It's straight out of the sort of book of Jimi Hendrix, is that. Particularly around that 3rd bar. And it's meant to be scruffy, but you need to be reasonably accurate. And that's kind of why it's so challenging to play. Now, verse 3... is just the remainder of verse 3 is just the same as this. Now the PDF for this is monstrous now. Is it 5 pages long? And that's just because I wanted to get all these little details and this little nuance. Following on from verse 3, we're going to carry on with just a bog standard chorus. There's nothing in here that we didn't cover in the prior one. This song only has 2 choruses, strangely, but it's got this just the same. Nothing to write home about, just the same as we've always played it. So as we're approaching the final part of this song, this gives us the next sort of tier of chords that we've been working on. And I don't know how to describe this section really, other than it's the wafty bit. It's the it's this sort of big instrumental section that finishes the song off. So we're kind of using the top half of bar chords moving down the neck, but one thing that's constant throughout it all is having this open high E string. And hopefully you can see it's kind of like the upper 3/4 of the E-shaped bar chords, but we're keeping that open string. Now when we get to the A minor shape, I'm going to move my finger up. You see the difference between these two fellas? But I'm actually muting the B string with a little bit of flesh to avoid getting any, because I can't bar it and have that high E, and the high E is more important to me than having the B string in, so I'm only actually sounding the D, the G and the high E there. G6, so G chord with that high E, and then F major 7, which is an F chord with that high E string in as well. And we're sort of moving down the shapes. So you've got 2 of these A chords. I'm then going to take the middle finger off, move the index finger up, catch a single A minor. I'm then going to move it down 2 frets and move it down 2 frets again. Now, there's a couple of different guitars layered on top of this, and it's kind of, the way I want you to approach this is don't get too hung up about getting all the tiny little inflections in this, because there's a couple of guitars all piled on top of each other, overdubs, and you'll never get it all in. So there's like a little bit of a lead line, there's an acoustic guitar doing the bit that we're talking about, and then there's another guitar kind of doing like Jimi Hendrix-style ad-libs over the top. You won't get all that in. I would recommend you just strum through these. Really focus on the important stuff, and this stuff sort of comes secondary to that. So you're going to play that a couple of times. And then you'll hear a sort of higher pick guitar part where you've got this kind of like really funny kind of like, what's the best way to describe it? It's like a... Now, it's sort of borrowed from this kind of... this sort of like funk 16th type vibe, but they're using it around the chords that we're using. So you've got this F major 7 shape up here where I'm using the middle finger on the 15th fret, index on the 14, and then pinky on the 17, and I'm just picking those 3 strings. But what I'm doing is I'm muting, I'm letting a little bit of flesh spill over from the high E, from that fretting that 17th fret of the B, so that I'm muting it, and I can do 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Yeah, all down and ups. I'm then going to go to a G5, which I move it down 2 frets. I keep my pinky on the 15th fret of the B string, but then I bar the 12th fret of both the D and the G. But I only do that for 2 beats, because you see how we change it again. 1 E and a 2 E and a. So far we've got. Now this G major, it reckons it's a G major 7 in Guitar Pro. It's basically the chord that we've just played for the F over here, but up 2 frets higher. And we do that for beats 3 and 4 of the bar, so you get this. And it's meant to be really messy and really kind of like euphoric. And then into that, you go into the finale. I called it the finale. I was scratching my head as to what... In the technical term for this is wafty. We're just going to keep going with it. If you want to put some extra ones in and be a little bit more dramatic about it, by all means, please do. But this is the bit where Anthony Kiedis goes into the sort of falsetto part, and it's the big kind of like release and finale of the song. So for this section, after we've done that sort of funk bit at the top, I want you to go around this section twice for me. And then eventually, the final thing that we'll touch on today, is the ending follows the same idea, but the rest of the band peel off. And you're going to play this progression 4 times, then finishing on an A. And you sort of, this is where you can sort of put those Hendrixy kind of ad-libs in if you want. And what he's doing is he's sort of messing around with those notes on the B string. Again, you're trying to emulate 2 parts on top of each other, and there's only so much that you can do with it. I know some people have transcribed a version of it that works, but I just can't seem to get it to sound the way that I want it to. So you can see that end of the song, the last like 2 minutes of the song is pretty much the same thing, round and round and round. But every time you move into a new section of that same chord progression, I want you to be playing your guitar a little bit harder to get that sort of, you're almost like you're on stage with the band, you're building that sort of, the dynamics of the song's getting louder and louder and bigger, and I want your picking to kind of mirror that as well. Tones wise, I'm using my Fender Jag today, because he uses a Jag on the video, and I just thought, and I'm pretty sure that's a Lake Placid blue one as well. It'll be a vintage one. This isn't a vintage one. This is a Japanese one. It's a fairly new acquisition for me, and I'm really enjoying playing it. Having the smaller scale length makes these big stretches quite a bit easier for me, and it's got this lovely kind of jangly. I don't know if you've seen a lesson I did recently on This Charming Man. It's got that sort of jangly kind of clean sound. As for tones, I'm not using the Boss Katana today. I'm using the Chord Cortex. Just a clean tone with a little bit of reverb. I'm using a Marshall JTM 45 preset on my Quad Cortex. You just want a nice big clean, crystal clean sound, whether that's Fender derived or Marshall derived or even a Vox, do that sort of chimey clean thing really well. Use plenty of treble and mids and just a little bit of reverb, and I would go for, if you've got a sort of a setting like an outer phase setting where you're using both pickups on a Gibson style guitar or positions 2 or 4 on a Strat, use it, sort of getting some of those outer phase tones in is definitely going to make it sound great. I really like Red Hot Chili Peppers. I feel like John Frusciante is he was one of the best guitarists of that generation, that sort of like 90s through to 2000s era, and sort of flying the flag for the sort of blues techniques, your Jimi Hendrix type stuff, but then putting his own stamp on it as well. Let me know in the comments below if there's another Red Hot Chili Peppers one you'd like me to cover, and I'll see you next week for another guitar lesson. Thank you so much for watching.